What's up, people? What's up? This is the one and only K Solo, and you are looking at me at the Rikers Island Stories, aka the K Solo Show. Excuse me, man. I'm over here laying down over here in my bed. I got to fix up my little studio. Yesterday, I had a little accident with my computer, and yeah, I fucked it up. I fucked up my computer. I wet it with some soda. Fucked up. Now I'm at it like $300. I'm looking at it right now like, damn, miss my computer. Anyway, yo, listen. This video is personal, and this video is about me. Everybody been telling me, yo, Solo, tell us something about you, blah blah blah, and I kind of hesitated on that, telling that story because, being honest to you, there are things that I don't want to talk about, you know. But sometimes it's good to face your demons and face facts that I was lucky to be born. I was very lucky to be born, put to you like that. I'm gonna share this story with you guys, and a lot of people, a lot of people don't know this, and especially my family members that are right now with me, like my three sisters, Marilyn, Angie, and Mimi. They don't know about what happened to me when I was, just a baby inside my mother's stomach. They was not even born, but my mother never told them the story, but my mother told me the story, told my brother Peter, told my brother Frankie, may Peter and Frankie rest in peace. And she also told my sister Maria, may she rest in peace. When I found this out, I was kind of hurt. Oh man, I was hurt. At first, I didn't show it to my mother. I was just taking it in. And once, my mother finished telling the story and stuff like that, I made believe that I was going to the bathroom. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, man, I cried like a baby. I cried like a baby, bro. God rest my mother's soul. She heard me crying, and she told me to open the door. And, I cleaned up my eyes, I cleaned up my face, and I opened the door and I said, "What's up, mommy?" And, she looked at me and she hugged me. She hugged me. She said she was sorry. It was not her fault. It was not her fault. I don't blame my mother for none of that stuff that happened. I blame my grandmother. I blame my grandmother because my grandmother was just so mean. My grandmother, my grandmother used to hate me, though. I remember when I used to go to my grandmother's house to visit my grandmother and my grandfather, the first thing she used to tell me when I used to walk in, she used to look at me with that evil look, man, like, damn, I can't stand you, and that was because of my color. All my brothers and sisters was light-skinned, seriously, light-skinned. I came out like my father's side of the family, it was me, my brother Peter, and my sister Nancy, may she rest in peace. We was from the same mother and the same father. But then again, I was the one that came out with this color. But that's okay because I love my color. I love looking brown. I love it. I love my lips. At one time, I used to hate my lips. Oh, I got big lips. Oh, this and this and that. But no more. Many girls, when I started growing up, I started getting confidence in myself, and what helped me get confidence, because I used to, when I started boxing and stuff like that, and people in the neighborhood would say, yo, that's that kid that boxes, girls used to like that, and next thing you know, I started meeting girls like crazy, and I'm talking about beautiful, beautiful girls. I am very, very picky, man. I'm sorry, I am very, very fucking picky. I don't like girls that smoke cigarettes. If she smokes trees, I don't mind. I don't mind that because I kind of like that a girl smokes trees with her man, because you sit down, you look at a movie, and you and her smoking a blunt and enjoying the movie. I love that. I love that. You see, me and my wife don't do that. A like I said, me and my wife have a relationship like we best friends, so that's how it goes. So let me start by saying this, okay? Let me start the story. My mother was born in Puerto Rico, in Bayamón, Puerto Rico. That's beautiful, la isla más linda que tuviste en tu vida. I mean, the country, the most beautiful country, island, whatever you want to call it in your life, is Puerto Rico, and I am very, very proud to be Puerto Rican. Well, this was in the 50s when my grandfather, my grandmother, and my mother, and the kid, and my uncles came to New York. My grandfather came to New York to get a better life, to make some money, and someday retire and go back to Puerto Rico. And he did. God bless him, he did. When my grandfather was young, my grandfather came to New York and started working immediately. But there was one problem. My grandfather didn't like no fucking bosses. He did not like no boss. He didn't like nobody telling him what to do, what time to come in, what time to do, what this and that. He did not like that at all. So he quit. The first job that my grandfather got in New York, when he came from Puerto Rico, he quit the same day. He said, no, this is not for me. So what my grandfather did, my grandfather was a hell of a mechanic. I mean, one of the best mechanics. People who used to come from all over in New York used to see my grandfather, for having my grandfather fix the cars and stuff like that. When the cars used to get fucked up, my grandfather was there. My grandfather was there, and that's one thing that I used to feel proud, because I had a grandfather who had 2 stores, a gas station, and a garage. Okay, my grandfather was bubbling like that. Alright, he had the American dream, and he made it, and he had it. But he went to Puerto Rico and fucked everything up, man, because my grandfather was just a dickhead. He was mean, he was strict, he was a fucking general that never smiled, only once in a blue moon. To make my grandfather smile, you had to be one funny motherfucker. And I used to make him smile, especially when I used to sing the song that he used to love. I'm a rhinestone cowboy. I know a lot of you guys are too young, or maybe don't even remember that song. It was a white song, but my grandfather used to love to hear it when I used to, especially, I started working in his house. Anyway, why I call my grandfather a dick? Because he was so fucking mean towards my uncles and my mother when they was kids. My mother did the mistake of coming out pregnant at the age of 14. Yes. She came out pregnant at the age of 14 to my baby, to my big brother Frankie. When my grandfather found out that my mother was pregnant, whoa, let me tell you, my mother caught the most ultimate beat down. I'm talking about, my mother said that my grandfather beat her like for about an hour. Smacking her up, smacking her, hitting her with his... Matter of fact, she told me he even broke a stick atop of her. Yes, that was my grandfather. Mean son of a bitch. He didn't give a fuck that she was pregnant or nothing. He was hitting her in her stomach. He was talking about, I'm going to make you abort this baby today. After a little minute, my uncles got in. My Uncle Theo, Kike, my Uncle Louis, and my Uncle Victor. They got in. And my Uncle Manuel. They got in and stopped my grandfather. When enough was enough, but they told my grandfather was enough. My uncles was in their teens. I think the oldest one was 21. So they got in. They got in to protect their baby sister. You feeling me? And thank God for my uncles, because if not, he would have killed my mother. He would have killed my mother. That's how bad was the beating. But has faith got it, and faith is crazy. You never could predict anything. What happened? My mother gave birth to my brother Frankie Santana. Frankie's father was a good man. Good man who always worked And right now he's still alive as we talking. Right now he be texting me and I be texting him. I call him Pops, you know what I'm saying, because I lost my father, and my father was never, I mean, he was there for me once in a blue moon, but you could say he was never there, you know what I'm saying, just buying me Christmas stuff and my birthday and sending me something that's not being there. That's just here, shut up, you know. So anyway, my mother came out pregnant again from my father. But this time, but wait a minute. When my mother gave birth to Frankie, my grandfather, he became so proud to become a grandfather that forget about it. He loved it, my brother Frankie. As a matter of fact, he even raised Frankie all the way to the age of 19. Once Frankie reached that age of 19, Frankie bolted from my grandfather's house and came to my mother's house because he couldn't just take it no more. My brother Frankie had a good life with my grandfather. Yes, he did. But once again, my grandfather was strict. But he always had favoritism for Frankie because he raised Frankie. It's understandable. Now, my mother meets my father. They chilling. My mother said that she fell in love with him for about a month. That's fucked up, right? My mother said I fell in love with him for about a month, but you know, he was there. He took me out of there. I wanted to leave my mother's house, and he got me an apartment. He got me the furniture and all this. This is my father. My father used to own. Hold on. My father used to own 3 ice cream trucks, Mr. Softy. My father used to own 3 of them. 3. Okay. I remember as a kid when my father used to come around. He used to knock the horn, and I used to come downstairs. He used to give me all the ice cream I wanted. But then again, he was not there for me. So my mother came out pregnant, and we had my brother Peter, my big brother Peter. You know, you got Frankie, now you got Peter. Peter was the darling to my mother's heart, and also my father's heart. Peter was handsome, very, very, very motivated. You know, he used to run around, play baseball, and do this and do that. I mean, he was the son that everybody wanted. Beautiful. My mother was with my father. Everything was beautiful. Bang. What happens again? My mother comes up pregnant from my father again. And this time I had a sister. Her name was Nancy. I love you, Nancy. Nancy was beautiful, gorgeous, but she was born handicapped, mentally retarded. I know I don't like using that word retarded, but you know, the truth is the truth, and it happened, you know. So what happened was that my grandfather told my mother, look, this is going to be too much for you. You already got Frankie. I'm taking care of him. You already got Peter. You taking care of him. Let me take care of Nancy. My mother at first said no. For a couple of months, my mother was taking care of my sister. One day, my mother goes to my grandfather. This is the story that my mother told me. She goes to my grandfather's house. My grandfather tells my mother, leave Nancy here. You come pick her up tomorrow the next day. My mother did that. Guess what? Nancy never came back home because my grandfather stood with her. My mother said, well, my grandfather is successful. My grandmother's okay. Frankie's there. You know, Frankie's like about 3 years old, 4 years old, something like that. Let me see, Frankie, blah, blah, blah. Frankie was like 4 years old, 4 or 5, let's say 5. Now my mother got 3 kids, Frankie, Peter, and Nancy. And my grandfather's taking care of 2 of them. My oldest brother, Frankie, and the middle, and Nancy. That's my grandfather. So my mother's only taking care of Peter right now. Beautiful. My father and mother and my grandparents was happy, lovely. Now, my mother reaches 18. This is the part where I come. My mother found out I was pregnant. Did you hear that? You heard what I just said? My mother found out that I was pregnant. I'm not even gonna be one. I'm not even gonna stop that. I'm gonna let it rock. I'm gonna let it rock. I'm gonna let it rock. It was a mistake. You heard? Anyway, my mother found out she was pregnant. She didn't want it to be pregnant no more. She wanted to chill. Especially, she and my father was going at each other's throat at that time. Oh yeah, there was. My mother told me she didn't love my father. She went with my father for all the bad reasons, just to get out of my grandfather's house. Now, my mother and father breaks up. After like a couple of months, my mother finally tells my father, "Look, I'm pregnant. I got your kid." No, not a couple of months. Excuse me. Once my mother found out that she was pregnant, she told my father. My father didn't believe my mother. Oh, that's not my child. That's not my kid. My mother said, "How dare you? I was with you, blah, blah, blah. This is your son." So my father was like, "No, it's not. No, it's not." He was denying it because him and my mother broke up for like about a month. You feeling me? And my mother was already like about maybe a month or 2 months. You know how so my father was upset, talking about, "Oh, that's not my kid." He was talking about all day that I was not his kid. So this is where it comes at, my brothers. This is what I'm saying, that it's a miracle that I'm here. My mother is stressing. She doesn't want me. She doesn't want me. And my grandmother gives her the big. My grandmother puts up in her stomach, in her mind, saying, "Listen, this kid is too much for you. You already got Frankie, Nancy, and now you're gonna have another one. That's 4 kids. You are 18 years old. That's too many kids. Everybody's gonna look at you and gonna look at you funny." And my mother's hearing this. My mother was, like I said, she was 18 years old. I never blamed my mother for what she did, because God works in mysterious ways, man. So every time I hear the story, every time I say the story, it just chokes me up, because it's not nice. It's not nice. You being the child that nobody wanted. So my grandmother met this lady who she used to do abortions. She used to do these crazy abortions. So my grandmother finally told my mother, "Come on, enough isn't enough. You can't have that baby." My grandfather was with my grandmother at the same time. "You can't have that baby." My father was talking about that I was not his kid, that my mother played him dirty. My mother never played that man dirty. So my mother goes with my grandfather to this Cuban lady. This is the story that my mother tells me. She tells me that she met this lady. My grandmother knew this lady. She was Cuban. And she would do something that my mother would not give birth to me. She would lose me. So practically trying to do an abortion. She gave my mother something to drink. After 15 minutes, my mother was like dizzy. She started throwing up. So once she stopped throwing up, that's when the lady said, "Okay, now we can do the procedures." She had my mother open her legs. And she takes this wire that was a hanger. It was a fucking hanger, but you hang clothes. These little metal wires back in the days. She takes this hanger and she puts it in my mother. So she's, my mother screaming with the pain. My mother passes out twice. My grandmother's over here holding her hands. "Be strong, be strong. You don't need this baby. You don't need this baby." And my mother was like screaming, "No, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts too much, no, it hurts." And again, this is the second time that my mother passed out. The lady's still working with my mother, but my grandmother sees that all this is doing is just bringing pain to my mother. And at one moment, the lady picks my grandmother sees her hands, and her hands got some blood. The lady took the hanger and poked my mother's vagina in the wrong spot. All that just to get rid of me, So my mother wakes up, and my grandmother says, listen. She tells the Cuban lady, where's that blood coming from? Once my mother heard blood, my mother said, take that off of me. Take it out right now. Take it out. The lady told my mother that she did it. She did the job. And my mother just told her, listen, stop lying. What did you do to me? The lady confessed that she stuck the hanger. She stuck in her vagina, but instead of going to take out the baby by pieces, like what they do. All right, I love you too. So what happened was that my grandmother started talking to my mother. No, wait a little while more. Let the lady finish it. My mother's like, no, enough. Take it out. So my mother got up with the hanger hanging from her vagina, and she said, no, take this off of me. So the lady took it off of my mother. So the lady tells my grandmother, no, it's done. And my mother said, listen, you lying. So it was supposed to be, back in that time, it was supposed to be $25. $25 just to abort, a baby. God, My mother and grandmother leaves. Now, my grandmother thinks that my mother had the abortion. So my grandmother's really happy now. That part I never understood, and my mother never understood that either. So my grandma's all happy, hee-hoo-ha. The next thing you know, my mother was bleeding a little bit, so my grandmother thought it was the period that the job was done, and now my mother's having her period. 2 days later, my mother stops bleeding, but she's still in pain. They go to the hospital. My mother goes to the hospital by herself with my father. Not with my father, with my uncle, Louis. They go to the hospital, and the doctor checks out. The doctor says, listen, you was poked. If you would have kept up this job, you would have died. So I don't know how to explain it because it's really hard, doctor thing. I know where they stuck that hanger was supposed to attach it to my head and just attach it to the baby and just pull everything out of the womb. But the lady still did what she did was she punched it almost right next to the placenta, almost right next to the baby. She punched a little hole, and my mother started bleeding. That was where the blood was coming from. It was not that she was successful doing the abortion. So the doctor told my mother, you still pregnant. And I don't know how. It was a miracle of God. So, of course, my mother was like thinking about it. And she said, no, I got to have this baby. It must have been a reason why this abortion never worked. It must have been a reason why God wanted my son to come out. That's what she told me. A couple months later, she had me. And this story that my mother said that she loved it giving birth to me. She said out of all my kids, and there was 7 of us, it would have been 8 with Nancy. She said with all my kids and the pregnancies that I had with my kids when I gave birth to them, they all gave me pain. She said you was the only one who came out with no problems. My mother said she pushed 2 times, and that was it. That was it. My mother said that I didn't cry. Even when the doctor spanked me, pop, I didn't cry. I was just, like a baby, all bloody, all nasty looking. So, everything is good. My father comes to see me now because my Aunt Lucy came to see my mother First thing my aunt does is call my father. Hey, you gotta come over and see your son. My father said, that's not my son. She said, you better come over here, you piece of shit. That is your son. He looks just like you. He got your complexion, your color skin, everything. You come over here. My father comes. Now, he finally comes up to me. He sees me when I was a baby, and in the waiting room, whatever the stuff they put the babies at. He saw that I was his complexion, lighter. I came out with beautiful hair, straight hair. I didn't come out like my father's hair. My father's hair was like black guy's hair, that rough thing, rough hair and stuff like that. I came out with straight Indian hair, That's why I say, I probably was, my family and my father's side was African and Indian mix. I believe that. So my father, first thing he did, he gave me his name. He gave me his name because my brother Peter was named after my grandfather, my father's father. So he had to name me after him. Ain't that a bitch? That was a curse because my real name, as you see it, is Crescencio Verbera, but I use Chris for short. So, as time I started growing up, I started growing up and everything was good. I was a baby. I used to stay with my mother all the time. I started going to kindergarten, first grade. And I remember many times going to my grandmother's house to visit my brother Frankie and Nancy. And every time my grandmother used to see me walk into her house, she used to call me Negro Sucio. Negro Sucio. In English, is you dirty nigga. I swear to God. It was so much that she was calling me that I thought she was calling me that as a compliment. Like, I love you. How you doing, sweetheart? So one day I go to my mother and I say, Mommy, I'm your Negro Sucio if I'm her black dirty, her dirty black son, whatever, real nasty. My mother said, what? Where you got that from? I told her, I said, well, that's what grandmother calls me every time, Negro Sucio. My mother got so upset that she grabbed me by the hands, got in her car, and brought me to my grandmother's house and told my grandmother, what you call my son every time my son's alone with you? My grandma said, I don't know. And I said, yeah, Grandma, you call me Negro Sucio. And, I still thinking it was a compliment. I saw my mother arguing with my grandmother. My grandfather comes in. My mother's ready to walk out. My grandfather said, wait, what's going on? What's going on? And my mother said, every time my son comes over here, your wife, my mother, calls him you dirty nigga. And my grandfather just looked at my grandmother with that disgust. And I can't say I remember, but I heard that he smacked her. I say this story because, I was not supposed to be here, but let me tell you, my mother's told me this, and many times she told me, she said, thank God that abortion did not work because you are one of my beautiful angels and I love you. My mother said, I love you. I miss her so much. You people don't know how it is, man, when you lose your mother. I know a lot of people know how it is. I know I'm not the only one. But when you have a mother like my mother, where my mother makes sure we always have food to eat. And my mother was a single mother. My mother was a single mother on welfare. And she did it. She was on welfare, plus she used to work part-time. And then she started working full-time. She got off welfare and started working in a toy store. Oh man, that was a son's dream come true. Every day my mother used to bring me toys. Every day my mother used to bring me the latest toys, the Batman games and all that stuff, and the Superman. I would have made a fortune if I would have had those games still. The Evil Knievel, they remember? They used to, Evil Knievel, he winds up and he runs and he jumps a little a ramp, whatever the hell. What I'm trying to say, man, in this video is, man, that I am grateful. I am grateful that I was born. And when it comes to that time for God to say, all right, come on, it's time to break out, or whoever says it, if it's God, aliens, whatever's put us here, when it's time for those people to say, come on, or whenever it's time that your body gives up on you, that your body winds down, will I be ready? No, because I will always love life. Life, I will always love life. Look, this little video is getting me a little fucked up here right now, you know, so I'm gonna cut it off. But you guys already know, man, this is K Solo, man, and I hope you guys appreciate my story, because a lot of people, like I said, a lot of people don't know this story. A lot of people don't know this story. Like I said, if my sisters see this now, they see this story, they're gonna want to call me and tell me why I put this on video. That's because why? Because I believe that people should know abortions is no good. Wear a condom, man. If you don't want a kid, wear a condom. And if you do the mistake and don't wear a condom and you have a kid, be responsible. Be a father for that kid. All the selling drugs and hanging out with your boys and smoking the weed and the trees and that's no good. And maybe I'm saying that now because I am 52 years old now. But let me tell you, I had my daughter when I was 25. And my daughter did not need anything. Whatever my daughter wanted, it was there. But then again, it was hard because her mother knew to get to me, she can get to she can get to me with my daughter. So, whatever my ex-wife wanted, I had to give it to her because I felt that if I don't, she would deny me my daughter. And I never wanted my daughter to grow up like that with that hate. And thank God she did it. Thank God she did it, you know. I have another story here that I want to say. Yeah, I remember now. That's a story that I want to say. And this is, you know, I'm going to keep that for another day. I'll keep it for tomorrow or the next day or something like that. I would like to find out why we have all these talented Spanish rappers. And we have a lot of Latin King rappers that are really, really damn good.